As we dig deeper here in Luke chapter 6, we're getting to this part again where almost every week we're talking about the Pharisees. Here they're nitpicking over the Sabbath and what Jesus and his men are doing on the Sabbath or aren't doing on the Sabbath, and they're just always pointing fingers and accusing. And as I always say, men, when we're talking about the Pharisees, there's always something to be learned because there's a little Pharisee in each of us. So this week, I want to look at that. Where maybe are we a little strict, our interpretation of things, our interpretation of the law, how we should approach God, all this kind of stuff. What they're getting on Jesus for is harvesting on the Sabbath. By their definition of harvesting, Jesus was not breaking any God-given law. Of course, he was picking this grain so that he could feed his people. They were hungry, and he references this story back in David, where David was fleeing from Saul, and he was hungry. He and his men were hungry, and they go to the temple, and there was bread there that was sacrificed. That the law was, after a week, this bread would be the old bread. They would offer new bread to God, and the priests would be able to eat the old bread. Well, the priest there, seeing David and his men are hungry, decides to give them some of this bread that was only for the priest, thus breaking the law. And first off, this law was never a God-given law. This was a law put in place by the Pharisees or religious leaders to keep people from actually breaking one of God's laws. So it was kind of an extra over and above thing. So drilling down on that, where in our lives do we have those extra over and above things that we are constantly looking at other people and saying, hey, you're not doing it right. You've got to do it my way or it's not proper. And we think that they are just really going off the charts and disrespecting God. And I think there's so many examples of this in our life where, I'm not talking about moral law kind of things. I'm talking about our interpretation kind of things. Like, one of the things that's sticking in my head right now is so many people I talk to, when they go in their church, they're like, man, I just don't like the worship music anymore. It just makes me angry, and it should go back to the way it was. And I'll admit, I've had those times as well. But the thing is, that's a problem in us, that we're not doing it right. It doesn't have to be exactly the way we see it. God is so amazing and multifaceted. He's going to use different things to reach different people. And sometimes we have to let our own personal beliefs go a little bit, because what sticks in my head right now is, God says, look, I'm doing something new in the world. And he's always doing something new. Maybe what we thought worked yesterday doesn't work today or tomorrow, and it's got to constantly be evolving. So this week, I want us to just look internally at ourselves. I really can't identify what it is for you, and I'll internally look what it is for me. But what is that thing that maybe I'm stuck on that I really need to let go and not let it get in the way of my worship, of my relationship with God? What do I need to do to get closer to God that might be a little different than what I've done in the past? Maybe you might say, get out of the rut I've been in, freshen up my relationship. How can I do that? And like I said, always good to look at the Pharisees to learn something about ourselves. So I'm going to leave it right there, and we will catch you next week on Wednesday Wisdom, where I'm sure it's going to be more discussion of the Sabbath and Pharisees. Have a great week. We'll catch you next time.